Alright, today we are going to change the clutch fluid in a Ducati 1198. Now I've got quite a few of these videos out for this, but look at the color of this clutch fluid and you'll know why I do this video so often. We just bought this bike about a month ago and I'm just now going through it. And when I was shopping for the 1198 and a 1098, every bike I looked at had black clutch fluid and black brake fluid. And there were even a couple jackasses who said that it was racing fluid. That's why it was so dark. Well, I call bullshit on that because your clutch fluid and your brake fluid should be a clear, just light honey looking color. It shouldn't be dark at all. And you see how dark it was when I pulled it out of there. So if we keep clean clutch fluid and clean brake fluid in our systems, we know our systems are going to work better. At least I hope we know that our systems are going to work better. So what you've seen me do is I removed the cap, I sucked out all the fluid that was in the reservoir, and then I took a paper towel and I shoved it down in the reservoir and I got all the crud out. And what I think happens, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think because the clutch line runs so close to the engine and it gets so hot that it just starts to break down the internal Teflon with inside the braided clutch line. So now I'm down at the slave cylinder and I'm hooking up my mighty vac to the bleeder valve on the slave cylinder, and I'm going to suck all the fluid out of the system. So this isn't just a bleed where I would suck some fluid out, put some new fluid in the reservoir. I'm sucking all the fluid out. If the fluid's this freaking dark on your motorcycle, you need to get as much of that crap out of your system as possible. So this bike has 7,200 miles on it. It's a 2009 1198. We're the third owner. My buddy Tracy bought this bike. We went down and picked it up together. He's a third owner of this bike, and we don't know what's been done to it. So if you're buying a bike and you're looking at it and the first thing you see is dark fluids, you pretty much can guess that the bike hasn't been maintained. Now, I know the oil wasn't changed on this bike. I know the brake fluids weren't changed on this bike. I know the clutch fluids weren't changed on this bike. And the antifreeze was just as old at, what is that, 8 years old now, 2007. So I've replaced all of that. Now we're doing we're going to pull off the slave cylinder. We're going to remove those three hex head bolts, and you see how nasty that is. So that's all the crap that's been on the chain that's flung up into the slave cylinder over all the years. So I take my WD-40 and I'm going to wipe down the slave cylinder and I'm going to get all the crud off of it. And it's very important that if you're going to go ahead and flush out all the fluid from your clutch system, it's pretty important to go ahead and pull the slave off and clean all the internals. We don't know if this bike's been ridden in the rain. We don't know, what's going on with this bike. It's a new bike to him, and he just wanted me to go through the bike from top to bottom. And I don't blame him. I mean, if I were buying the bike, I would want somebody to go through my bike too. And since I'm cheap labor, I have a lot of friends that actually do this because it's kind of a no-brainer. You buy a bike as cheap as you can possibly get it, and you buy it in the wintertime, and then let your buddy who makes these stupid-ass YouTube videos go through it and make a video, and then I don't charge you for labor. So if one of you guys gets a CBR or YZF or something like that and wants me to go through it, just shoot me an email. We can talk. I'm in Murphy, North Carolina. Anyway, so I sprayed WD-40. When I sprayed the whole thing down, I sprayed it down into the little hole where the push rod goes. and I'm taking a Q-tip and I clean out the inside of where the push rod goes. And now I take some, this is like a marine grease. It's, what do they call it, graphite marine grease. So once I've got that little hole cleaned out, I put grease around the hole, and that's where this O-ring is supposed to stick. It's not supposed to stick to the bike. So I can tell that this slave cylinder's never been off. So I clean up my O-ring and I'm going to stick it back into the slave cylinder. So that O-ring is supposed to keep dirt and debris and water and whatever out of the slave cylinder. So we want to wipe down the push rod, and then we're going to take a pair of vice grips and we're going to pull this push rod out. Now size up your vice grips first, and then put a paper towel or a towel or something over your push rod, and then grip on it. That way you're not scoring up the push rod and destroying the inside of your slave cylinder. So this is what your push rod looks like, and the slave pushes on it, and when the push rod goes through the engine case, it pushes it pushes the pressure plate on the clutch out, so you can change gears, so your transmission and everything will turn freely. So we're going to clean up the little hole that the push rod came out, because there's all crud up around that. And then again, we're going to take some grease, and we're only going to go from the O-rings out. So we want to make sure that our push rod has some kind of lubricant in it, so it slides freely into the slave cylinder. And those O-rings are there to keep your engine oil from dumping all over the road and the chain and the back tire and whatnot. So we're going to put a light coat of grease on the push rod just to protect it and to make sure that it slides in and out. You don't have to put any kind of grease or lubricant on the push rod that goes into the bike, because your engine oil is going to go ahead and lubricate that for you. So our O-ring's in place, and now we are going to put the slave cylinder back on. Now you can't just cram your slave cylinder on and put the bolts in. You want to put all 3 bolts in, and then you're going to go from one corner to the next and do a few turns. And as you'll see, the slave cylinder is actually pushing that push rod into the engine. So I put a couple turns on here. This is going to hold the slave cylinder on the side of the bike. And then I go do the bottom one, and now I'm going to come back up to the left top. I'm going to put that one in. I'm going to give it a few turns, and you can see the slave cylinder pulling itself towards the bike. Again, you don't want to do just one bolt and tighten one bolt all the way down. You want to go in a circular motion and slowly bring this slave cylinder back up to mate with the side of the bike. Alright, with the slave cylinder back on, I'm going to take off the cover, the little dust cover off the top of the nipple, because I'm going to get ready to use that again, and I'm going to top off the reservoir with fresh .4. Fresh .4. You're always going to use .4 from a new bottle. This bottle that you just saw me dump in, it was new because I just finished up the brakes, and you can watch that video next if you want. But I can do the entire bike on one 12-ounce bottle of brake fluid. So there's no need for you to run down to the store and buy more. So what I'm going to do is I filled up the reservoir, and I'm going to flush out the line right now. So I'm going to flush everything that's in that reservoir. I'm going to pull it through the system. So when I get done, my reservoir is going to be empty again. So you hear it sucking air right now, So my reservoir is empty. I'm going to remove my Mighty Vac and I'm going to top off my reservoir once again. So I pulled an entire reservoir of clean .4 through the system. And this should be your goal too, because this is going to kind of clean whatever crud's still up in the line. It's going to pull some of that out. And now we're going to start working on bleeding the system. So now I'm going to pull just enough fluid out of the reservoir. I have the reservoir all the way to the top, to the very top. I went past high. So I'm going to pull it down to the low mark on the reservoir. So once it hits low, I'm going to close it off. I'm going to top it off again. So I'm going to remove my Mighty Vac. And now I'm going to top off my reservoir. And this is going to be the second time. So I'm going to bleed it a second time. And again, this is to make sure that I get all that black shit out of my system. If you leave it, that just means there's more contaminants to turn your new fluid dark even quicker. We don't want to have our fluid that dark. It's just not good. Your clutch isn't going to operate to its optimum potential if you have nasty fluid in there. So here we go. I'm going to top it off. The last step here is we have no clutch feel right now. So we're going to move the cap out of the way. And I don't like doing this without a towel on the bike, but sometimes the towel just gets in the way. So be very careful. You don't want to get any brake fluid anywhere on the bike. So pull your clutch in slowly and you'll see that there's nothing here. There's nothing going on. So I removed the cover from the top of the clutch master cylinder. And I'm going to put that with the clutch reservoir cap. And now I'm going to take my 11mm wrench and we're going to loosen up that nipple. But you see there's no, that clutch isn't grabbing at all. So there's still air in the master. So I put my 11mm wrench on top of the bleeder nipple for the master. Break it free a little bit. And then I put my Mighty Vac on there. I start pumping and then I just bleed it out. And you can see the reservoir. You see it going down. So only take it down to maybe the low. Once fluid starts coming out, you've gotten the air out of the system. Now when I go ahead and I grab the clutch lever, you see it's grabbing. I mean, it's taking me some effort to pull that clutch in the way a Ducati is meant to be. So now I'm going to take the .4 and I'm going to pull it right to the high mark. Don't go past high or it's going to come oozing out when you put the cap on your reservoir. So there's your cap. Just twist it on and get it on there pretty tight. Make sure to wipe down any surface that might have had brake fluid on it. If you don't wipe down those nipples, the next time you come back to change out your fluid, you'll see that corrosion has already taken place and it's kind of eats off the anodization off those nipples. Be sure to always put those rubber caps back on the bleeder nipples. The last thing you want is dirt and debris to get down into that bleeder valve, and next time you do this job, no fluid comes out at all. So there you go. That's how to manage your clutch system. You know, it's just a basic hydraulic system, but you want to make sure that that fluid's always clean. So thanks for watching this video. Please watch some of my other ones. I need the money. Good day.